Welcome to the Frontline. Now that you know how to text, let's learn some more advanced tips and tricks. So when you're texting, keep in mind that we're texting to achieve a specific goal. The big picture, or the why, are the goals of the Frontline as a whole. We're a new movement that's part of the biggest protest movement ever, the movement for Black Lives. We must step up and do everything we can to defend our democracy and advocate for a fair and just system that truly works for all of us. Each campaign we text in will have a specific goal. That is the what. It's pretty easy to tell this from the initial message that we're sending, which will end with a question or something we're asking voters to do. This will help you understand the potential answers found in the canned responses. For example, we might be asking folks to sign the Frontline pledge or turn out for an event. The who might be a little harder to find, but you can always ask. Behind the scenes, staff have selected an audience that fits the why and the what. We will always target potential supporters, though sometimes we will reach wrong numbers and non-supporters. It's never our intention, but it does happen. Let's review our priority of responses before beginning. Whenever we receive a response, we'll go through a mental checklist of the priority of responses. 1, is the person asking to be removed from the texting list, opted out? 2, is this an update to voter information like a wrong number, cannot vote, or they're responding in a different language? Is this an answer to our current question or ask, like will you sign the pledge? And 4th, is the contact asking a question or giving information to the first ask? For each bucket or category of reply from a voter, we as a texter have a corresponding action to take. This is also the order in which we respond to information provided by the voter. So when we receive a reply from a voter, we want to ask ourselves those 4 questions. Does this include a request to opt out of texting? If so, we need to opt them out. Second, is this an update to voter information? Again, that's a wrong number, you cannot vote, replying in a different language. And is this covered by one of the tags? If so, we'll click a tag, save the tag, and find the corresponding canned response to send to the voter. Is this an answer to our current question? If so, we'll use a survey response at the top of the list. And lastly, is this a specific question? In that case, we will need to look harder in the canned responses to find something that fits, or use the help needed tag to get help from a staff member or volunteer to help us write the appropriate response. Let's review opt-outs. We are ethically and legally required to remove folks from our list who are asking to be removed. You're going to read text messages really carefully and check to see if a voter tells you to take them off the list explicitly by saying stop, don't text me, or no more messages. And there are other ways in which they can communicate this as well. So we just want to make sure that we're reading carefully. We also opt out folks who are racist, threatening, or abusive. This is different from other groups, so double check their policies before beginning to text with them, but this is the protocol for our texting program at the Frontline. On the flip side, we don't opt out anyone who doesn't specifically ask. So here are some examples of voters who don't want to opt out, but are responding in a way that might seem like it. You'll find canned messages appropriate to these situations. So someone is saying moved, a wrong number, that they're sharing some simple profanity, or they're saying that these text messages are annoying. All of these things, we have canned messages to respond to that voter in an appropriate manner, but we are not going to use these messages to opt them out. Where to find survey responses. So survey responses are the responses that answer the ask at the beginning. You will find them at the top of the canned responses dropdown on Spoke. Here's a quick tip. So here's a hint for the third priority that we were talking about, where there's an answer to the current ask, a survey response. If 2 responses in the survey responses could apply, the higher one in the canned responses is probably the best one. We've tiered them to make the process as easy as possible when you're communicating with voters. Next, let's go over the no's. A lot of folks are going to tell us no. This is normal. So you want to just go ahead and read the responses super carefully and assess which of the 3 canned responses you can use. So if someone says no or is vague about why they're saying no, you want to go ahead and use the no vague response. This one gives some information and asks a question to keep the conversation going, so you can hopefully have a chance to persuade them into being a yes. And if someone indicates that they're not interested or you've previously already tried to persuade them, you want to go ahead and use the no, not interested response. This gives information but doesn't try to continue the conversation. And finally, if someone says that they're not a supporter and hasn't asked to be opted out specifically, you want to use the no non-supporter MAGA. This will sign off for non-supporters who don't ask to be opted out. This ends the conversation without giving any information. Now that you know how to text and are comfortable with the priority of responses and even know some extra tips on the third priority, answers to the main ask, let's go ahead and cover some more advanced texting. The first step is the appropriate scripting. Sometimes the canned responses won't fit the situation. Try to start with a canned response as much as possible. We can more easily collect data this way and ensure that the proper information is given to the voter. However, it is okay to edit. And when you do, please follow these guidelines. First, speak from the heart. Voters will know when you're saying something you truly believe. Second, connect with the voter specifically on what they're telling you. So this is a hard time, and voters might tell you important and hard information. Let them know that you hear them. And finally, do not engage in debates. We're here to turn out supporters, not argue with folks. Next, let's go over the acronym we use to make sure our custom messages stay on track. C.A.S. C.A.S. stands for the character limit. Ask, source. Each time you adjust a canned response, you'll want to keep these things in mind. The first thing to keep in mind is the character count of your message. Cell phone carriers are very particular about the length of messages. So if you go over 306 characters, they're likely to get split up into many different segments and show up to the voter out of order. In order to avoid that, if you customize your message, pull up a character counting tool and pop your message in there before sending. You want to keep your messages short. And if you use links, put them in the middle of the message to avoid them getting broken up and keep the ask at the end. And finally, if you must get long, send multiple messages. The next consideration is A for ask. Almost all of the scripted responses will end with a question, encouraging folks to join us in something like a training, sign a pledge, show up to an event. Further down in the conversation, you might get to a second ask, tell a friend, sign up for SMS messages, or something else. Each ask will be worded slightly different in each canned response, so make sure not to repeat the language used in previous messages in the conversation, but make sure to keep the ask there. And the final part of the acronym is the S. Check your source. When texting, we are representatives of the frontline. Please do not make up language about the campaign, even if it sounds great. The language we use is carefully crafted by partner organizations, and we want to make sure that we are representing them appropriately. The last thing we'll cover in this training are some advanced spoke tricks that will come in handy when tailoring your responses. Sometimes the voter will give you an answer and you'll follow up with information that leads them to give you more information. This will happen quite frequently since most of our canned responses end with a restatement of the ask. In this case, the voter said no, so we used the no vague response to attempt to elicit more information. If the voter responds to the question with more information, you'll need to send another survey response. In this case, the voter responded in a way that clearly indicated they were a non-supporter. So to continue, we will click all responses. Again, in the drop-down, we'll click all questions. The response we've previously selected will be highlighted. Click the response you need, in this case, no non-supporter, and select it. Click out of the drop-down and send your message. Another trick you might need is to skip ahead. This doesn't come up too often, but it's very useful when it does. Sometimes the voter will answer your question with information that is found not in the first ask, but in the second ask. In that case, the voter is answering not only the first ask, yes, they'll vote for the candidate, but also they're waiting for their mail-in ballot. Another scenario that might come up is yes, they'll sign the pledge and yes, they want to volunteer. In this case, you'll want to click all questions to find the first response, yes. Before you send it, you'll see that the next question, will you vote by mail, was already answered by the voter. They are planning to vote by mail. They've already requested a ballot. So click all responses again and click the answer you selected, yes. The drop-down of the next response will show up. Now you can pick the response that you want that corresponds to what the voter said, that she is supportive and waiting for her ballot to come. Now you've got a conversation that makes sense, which is super important because one of our main goals is to have quality conversations, which is why reading carefully what the voter is saying to you and adjusting how you're giving canned responses and doing some slight editing could really help create a more quality conversation that has folks not only supporting the front line, but doing whatever asks we're sending with that particular campaign. So now you've got it. Don't be afraid to use your help needed tags. We're here to help and really want to be a resource when you all are texting and reaching out to voters and just encouraging them to join this movement and to get out and vote and to prepare for everything before, during, and after this election. Let's get out and text for the front line.